إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings be upon all of you. For today's Friday message, I just wanted to share some brief thoughts, some brief commentary from a Vincentian perspective and some of the principles that we work with in terms of the Vincentian spirituality and in terms of how can we find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can we find God? Through encounter with other people, through especially encounter with people on the margins. And I wanted to kind of integrate those principles with the perspective and a discussion of some of the ayat and just a few short verses from Surat al-Qasas talking about the story of Musa alayhi salam. Alhamdulillah, we know one of the things I love about the archetypal prophetic stories that we find in the Quran, but are also found in other scriptures, the story of Yusuf, the story of Musa, the story of even our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may peace and blessings of God be upon him, is that you find that these figures have a complicated relationship with privilege, have a complicated relationship with the powerful in their society. Oftentimes you see with Yusuf alayhi salam that Yusuf alayhi salam has the experience of being human trafficked. He has the experience of being in prison, but he also has the experience of being a servant in the palace. He also has the experience of having close relationships with people who are in power. Similarly, our own Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may peace and blessings be upon him, he was born to an elite tribe. He was born to a very well-respected tribe. He had a noble lineage, but at the same time, and his tribe in fact was powerful, and he had powerful relatives in the place where he lived. But at the same time, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born an orphan, and he grew up poor, and he didn't have many of the privileges that one would normally associate with his position. And we see also with Musa alayhi salam, of course, famously Musa alayhi salam is born, is from Bani Israel, and Musa alayhi salam is taken and he is brought to the palace of Fir'aun as a way of saving him. And Musa grows up in that environment, but he always knows that he's not fully from that environment. And of course it comes to a head when the incident occurs with Musa and the other person, and Musa's natural proclivity to fight for justice, his natural proclivity to stand up for those who are on the outside, leads him to get involved in a situation that he later regrets getting involved in the way that he did. And Musa alayhi salam is then forced to flee out of fear. He's forced to flee out of fear, and he's running away from Fir'aun. And we come to this part in the Quran in Surat al-Qasas where Musa alayhi salam is running away from Fir'aun, and he begins to make dua. And the first dua that Musa alayhi salam makes is that he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, save me from the zalimun, save me from the oppressors. And then as he begins to run, as he begins to go in a direction, Musa alayhi salam, he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, perhaps that my Lord will guide me to the straight way. And Musa alayhi salam is on a journey. The commentators make very clear that Musa alayhi salam is journeying for days. And he's journeying and he doesn't have food. And he doesn't have equipment and clothing for the journey. And Musa alayhi salam is really in a desperate situation by the time he reaches Midian. He's happy to reach Midian because it's outside of the realm of control of Fir'aun. But he's still afraid and he doesn't have anything. And we see here that Musa alayhi salam comes to the place where there's the well. And the people in Midian are watering by the well. And Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ولما ورد مع مدين ووجد عليه أمة من الناس يسكون ووجد من دونهم امرأتين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Musa literally sees an ummah of people, an ummah min nas, a large group of people and men who are watering their animals at this well. And some of the commentators say that these men would not only not let other people come and water, but when they wouldn't be watering, they would take this huge boulder and cover the well so that people could only get the extra or what had flowed out, except for them, the powerful ones, and the ones who had the privilege there. And so Musa alayhi salam sees this going on, but Musa's attention is drawn to the outskirts. Musa's attention is drawn, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, min dunihim. He found min dunihim. On the margins, he found on the outside 2 women, and Musa alayhi salam's attention and his heart is drawn to the women, not to the large throng of people. So Musa alayhi salam goes to the women, and we know that he approaches them and he asks them, ma khatbukumma. They ask him, what is the matter? What is your story? What is the reason that you're here and they're there? You can tell that Musa alayhi salam wants to know why the situation is the way he is. He wants to learn more. And so we begin by saying that Musa alayhi salam has a principle of awareness, what we call in our Vincentian kind of steps of transforming yourself towards your journey towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you start with awareness, being aware of different people's situations. And Musa alayhi salam, despite the fact that he was in his own need, despite the fact that Musa alayhi salam had his own situation he was fleeing from, Musa alayhi salam looks to those women on the outskirts and he wants to know their story. He wants to engage with them. And so when he's aware of them and goes to them, then he begins to dialogue with them. He begins to talk with them. He asks to know about their situation. Ma khatabukumma. And the women explain to him that we cannot water our animals, we have to wait till they go, and then even then maybe we'll only get the leftovers, we'll only get a little bit. And he explains why, the question that he doesn't have to ask but would be on his mind, like, why are you women here when all the rest of the people are men here? And they said, our father is an old man, our father cannot come here himself, that we're working to try to make our family survive, that we have to bring our animals here in order to try to get them water. And so Musa alayhi salam, when he learns about their situation, he engages in service. And part of the reason we're giving this message is to, inshallah, celebrate and encourage the people who are engaging tomorrow in Vincentian Service Day. And even in the current situation, we know that service doesn't stop, that need doesn't stop. And if we have to do it remotely, we will find a way to do it remotely. That we do not want to create a situation of distancing between different groups in society. As some of the people we know who work in these areas have stressed to us, they have stressed to us to use the concept of physical distancing, not the concept of social distancing. Because the concept of social distancing is a reality in our society has all the time. That the people of privilege are kept separate socially from the people who are poor and the people who lack opportunity. That you have a certain pathway and means for the elite, and places where they recreate, and places where they eat, and places where they work, and then you have a whole other strand of society that's cut off from that. And what much of this situation has revealed to us the way that that is a reality in our society. So we don't want to encourage that and embrace that, but we do understand the need to be physically apart from people while we deal with the situation that we're in. But we want to keep people together socially. We want to keep the hearts together. We want to keep ourselves together in terms of reaching out, in terms of the dialogue that we're talking about. So Musa alayhi salam, he has that attitude of service. He situation, and Musa alayhi salam uses the gifts that he has. He uses the strength that he has. He uses the desire for justice that he has, and the lack of fear of other people that Musa alayhi salam has. And Musa goes and removes the boulder, and he waters the animals for the women, and then he brings back the animals. And Musa alayhi salam is clear here that even though inshallah ta'ala he was offering something, he wasn't looking for a reward for it. But Musa alayhi salam also realizes, who knows where he's at in service. Many times we start on our journey of service and we start with this attitude that we are coming to help others, that we are coming to offer something to people that they don't have. And there's a limitation to that view. We know there can be a paternalism to that view. There can be a condescension in that view. So Musa alayhi salam, he doesn't want anything specifically back from the women because he didn't do it for that reason. But Musa alayhi salam turns then and he goes in the shade and he turns to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and he makes the famous dua. فَقَالَّ رَبِّي إِنَّ لِمَا أَنزَلْتَ إِلَيَّ مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَقِيرٍ. Indeed, he says, my Lord, I'm certainly in desperate need of whatever khair you can send to me, of whatever good you can send to me. So I left from the fear that I had. and I was looking and hoping that Allah would show me a straight way. And I've come to this place. But now the reality of my situation is upon me. The reality is clear that I don't have anything, that literally any good you could send me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm in desperate need of. And this is a beautiful thing you see in many of the prophetic du'as in the Quran, that the du'a is not necessarily asking for a specific thing. It is more eloquent, in fact, to just make a general request to let Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know that you know who Allah is. You know He's Arhamur Rahimin. You know He's the giver of everything good. You know He's the provider of everything that needs to be provided. And you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in your heart. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what you want. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although He loves you to ask, sometimes it's more eloquent not to ask for specific things, because Allah knows what is best for us and what is worse for us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give us whatever He wills. But instead, to turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to turn to Allah in the dua, and to just say, Allah, I'm in need of whatever good you can send me. I am desperately faqir. I am one of those people who is in deep need and poverty of whatever you subhanahu wa ta'ala would like to send to me. And then we see the beautiful way that the story progresses, is that Musa alayhi salam is after his dua, as if in answer to his dua, and indeed it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answering his dua. The women come back. The women, after speaking to their father, come back and tell Musa to come and meet their father. And the beautiful thing that we see here is that Musa alayhi salam, when he meets the father of the two women, Musa alayhi, the father of the, says that he shares his story with them, that the dialogue continues, that Musa alayhi salam, who is alone in this place, who has this desperate and wonderful story that he has to share, he shares it with the man. He lets him know where he's coming from, and you can see that the man, you can see that he shares very deeply about his story, because Allah doesn't say exactly what he says. He just says he shares his story. But the reaction of the man, the reaction of the father of the women to Musa alayhi salam, shows how deep what he shared was, when he tells him, "Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. You have escaped from the dhalimun. You have escaped from the oppressive people." And that was the deepest fear that was on Musa alayhi salam's heart, and it came out in his story. And the first thing that the man does in response to his story is to reassure him and to address the emotional situation that he's in, and to tell him and to reassure him that you have indeed here escaped the dhalimun, escaped the oppressive people. And then he sets up an arrangement with Musa alayhi salam, because the daughter, who is has that insight, has that vision of what a type of person that Musa is, and the gifts that he can bring from her experience with him. And she suggests that the father hire him, and the father wants to bring him into the family. And all of a sudden, Musa alayhi salam has started another beautiful journey. He started a journey of being with this family, of having a wife and a family of his own, of serving as a shepherd, of serving in a situation where he needs that experience for what lies ahead with him, with going back and freeing the Bani Israel. Musa alayhi salam needs that experience and needs those years of time to be apart, and a time in between his time in the palace and fleeing from the palace to his time when he's going to come back to Fir'aun. And so Musa alayhi salam is ready to embark on this journey where he will learn a lot. And we see one beautiful thing. If we were to think at the beginning when Musa saw these two women, we might think Musa said, "Oh, I'm strong, I'm big, I'm concerned about these poor women, I'm concerned about these people on the margins, so I'm going to go help them. I'm going to go do what I can do for them." And that would be a beautiful thing in itself. But we see the reality, as we so often find when we truly encounter people, when we go through awareness, when we go through dialogue and we learn about people, is that you move past that to a state of solidarity, where you stop seeing the person as different than you, and you start to realize as belonging to a totally different group than you, as belonging to something that's beneath you, or as belonging to someone that's in need of you. In fact, rather you realize through dialogue that those people are people. They're not objects. They move to becoming subjects. They have their own stories. They have their own life experience. They have their own situations that they can share with you and that you can learn from. And you can share your story with them. And you guys can comfort each other. And you can come in a complementary way to meet each other's needs when you have a true, sincere relationship that lasts over time and that gets beyond the level of just awareness to the level of, through dialogue, to the level of solidarity. And Musa alayhi salam, when he's in solidarity with those people, then he realizes, just as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would realize when he's talking to the Ansar, that we could look at the story as Musa coming and helping the women, but in reality, Musa alayhi salam is the one who was in desperate need. Musa alayhi salam is the one who didn't have anything, who had nowhere to live, no family, no food, whose shoes were falling off his feet. Musa alayhi salam was the one who's in desperate need, and indeed it was the women and their father and that community that had everything that Musa alayhi salam needed. So they come together in solidarity, and we find that it's never a matter of one person saving another. It's never a matter of one group saving another, but it's a matter of us encountering each other. It's a matter of us learning from each other. It's a matter of us living with each other in solidarity, and in that experience, indeed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves all of us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we find Allah in our relationships with each other. And just as the father of the women says to Musa alayhi salam that you have been saved from that oppressive people, and just as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to the Ansar, how do you feel that some people get sheep and camels and I go home with you, that I have found my home with you, that I have found solidarity with you, and in my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have found that by encounter with those people. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us, even during these strange times, even during these difficult times where we feel so disconnected from even the people close to us and even the people that we love, that we can also connect to others, that we can also continue to reach out in creative ways to encounter other people, to experience other situations, to learn. And inshallah ta'ala, if we keep our hearts open to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this beautiful time of Ramadan, as we fast, as we get closer to our emotions come to the surface, our vulnerability comes to the surface, we may feel like Musa alayhi salam, that we are tired, that we're hungry, that we're in need of a job, that we're in need of help, that we're in need of assistance, that we're in need of whatever good that Allah can send us, whatever good our Rabb can send us. And that vulnerability brings everything to the surface. And we know from that comes the sincere du'as, and from that comes the open hearts. And many times our du'a is answered by that other person who is coming up, who is connecting with us, who is coming down the road to meet us and to take us to a new relationship, a new dialogue, a new solidarity. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless everyone engaging in whatever type of service they can. May Allah bless us in our fasts. May Allah bless you as you break your fast. May you keep finding creative ways to serve others and to encounter others and to engage in dialogue with others. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Jazakum Allahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.